Okay, thank you. Okay, right now we're going to open the Finance Committee meeting of Wednesday, October 17th. It's about 10 minutes past 7, and we have a quorum, so we're all set. The only item of business on our agenda today is to finalize the Finance Committee warrant recommendations. Those of you who may already realize is that the warrant for the special town meeting is out. It's in people's mailboxes right now. The special town meeting is set to happen on Monday night, October 29th at 7 o'clock in the evening at the Abington High School gymnasium. So we wanted to take this opportunity to go through the warrant articles so that people feel that they are aware of what's going on and what the Finance Committee recommendations are. The recommendations, by the way, will be available on the website, on the town's website tomorrow, and also in several locations in town. Usually we put them at the library, maybe the police station, the senior center, some other places around town too. So, okay, so far everybody okay? That's the plan?
Yep.
All right, okay, so moving on, then, okay, so anyway, so the warrant, the first set of articles, and just to kind of be clear on things, we've already met twice on this warrant, on a draft version of the warrant last week, and so now what we're going to do is we're going to tell you what our recommendations were, and if anybody wants to reconsider, by all means, speak up. So Article 1A, 1B, and 1C. These are articles where we're taking free cash, and you can there's an explanation on the warrant, free cash, and we're putting some of that into a stabilization fund, which is really sort of like a rainy day or a savings account. Another portion of that money is going into capital improvement trust, which is used for capital items. It's usually something that we do take care of in the fall, try to fund some capital items for the different departments. And then 1C talks about a sum of money going into other post-employment benefits liability trust fund, which is an account to build reserves to meet unfunded post-employment liabilities. So anyway, so those are the three things. This article, as you read it, there's a sum of money being transferred into each of one of these places. One of the most important is about $535 being put into stabilization. And again, stabilization is the equivalent of a rainy day fund, sort of a savings account. So we had recommended approval of that article, and I think we all good with that? We are, right?
Yes.
Okay, excellent. All right, moving along, Article 2 on the warrant is to see if the town will raise and appropriate or transfer from available funds the sum of $105,565 for funding of the fiscal year 2013 property, casualty, liability, and workers' compensation expenses. That's the amount of money needed for the remainder of the fiscal year in that property, casualty, and liability workers' comp line item. The Finance Committee had also recommended approval of this article. You guys just stop me or else I'll just keep going along, or pipe up if you want to take over.
Before you actually get into Article 3,
Yes.
I'd actually like to make a motion to reconsider Article 3.
A motion to reconsider Article 3?
Second?
Second? Okay, all those in favor, we have to do that, right? Okay, all right. Sean, do you want to take Article 3 then, for that reason?
I think that when we met last, and as you review the minutes, the previous version of the warrant actually had a Article 3 and a 3A. And we had originally voted as a group to pass over Article 3 and approve Article 3A. Since the the warrant that was sent home to residents' houses, if you will, had moved or redesignated 3A as 3, I'd like to actually make a motion to approve Article 3 of the warrant that was mailed to residents' homes.
I'll second that motion.
Okay. For discussion, Article 3 that you see on your warrant now is basically is seeking an increase in the salary for the town clerk from $60,351.20 to a proposed salary of $63,763.20 for an increase of $3,412. I know what I can say is I know that there have been a couple times that this has come up, and unfortunately the town was not really in a position to fiscally or financially support this increase. I know personally, I think Linda Adams, the town clerk currently, does a fabulous job, and I know I was pleased to be able to recommend approval of this. Anyone else have any discussion? No? Okay, all those in favor of the motion on the floor to recommend approval of Article 3? Okay, excellent. Thank you, guys. So we'll approve that. Article 4, as we're moving along, Article 4, when you're looking in your town warrant, you're going to see that Article 4 is requesting transfer from the Capital Improvement Trust Fund, which, by the way, was just funded in Article 1B. And it's, so to fund this with the Capital Improvement Trust Fund or free cash or otherwise provide sums necessary to fund the fiscal year 2013 capital plan. And on the second page that you'll see here, on actually really page 3 of the warrant, there is the capital plan for fiscal year 2013 and the priorities. There are 3 columns. One goes through the needs, if you will, of the various departments. The second column is the total requested for all of those needs or those items, and the third column is the town manager recommended. That's what we're dealing with, is how much we feel we can fund. As much as we wish we could fund everything in the second column, we really can't. So these are the recommendations. I wanted to bring up Article 4, something that, and I'm not saying that we're reconsidering, but I just wanted to mention Article 4 because the Finance Committee did recommend approval of Article 4 at our last meeting. But there was some consideration, there was some potentially misunderstanding of what the capital plan had covered in the prior year. Specifically with regard to what we're suggesting funding this year for the police department cruiser replacement. The funding that you see here, or the recommendation that we have, is to fund the replacement of 2 cruisers with this year's capital plan. And any of you guys can chime in if you want. The plan sort of is to, on a rotating basis, replace certain cruisers. You know, the cruiser obviously is an integral piece of equipment that the police department has. Obviously, those vehicles run 24/7. They're rarely shut off, if ever. It's basically equivalent to having, another piece of equipment. They're gone. They're anything. So anyway, so we had agreed that we would fund 2 of those. There was sort of some information that came up after the fact that suggested that there had been 3 cruisers purchased in 2012 with operational funds, and I know I wasn't aware of that. So what I did is I went back and checked our capital plan, which would have been in October of 2011, which would be for the fiscal year 2012, and in fact, yes, there was 3 cruisers funded, approved, recommended. The town voted for those to fund 3 cruisers out of the capital plan for 2012. There were no cruisers in the 2012 operational budget or the 2013 operational budget. So at a meeting back in April of 2012, we had discussed whether cruisers should be in the operational budget or in the capital plan, and those of us who were on the committee at that time agreed that we would reconsider funding cruisers out of this capital plan. So just wanted to make sure everybody was really aware of what we're agreeing to. There have already been 3 that were purchased for capital plan last year. This is another 2, and that is in line with the process of replacing. Sean?
I think that's kind of the summary point, is that the police chief had identified that his replacement cycle is 2 1 year, 2 the next year, 3 the next year. So it seems to kind of wax cliche. We plan the work, and now we'll work on the plan. So it seems like we're exactly in line with where we needed to be, and I affirm that the action that we took at our last meeting was the most prudent action to take with the funds that were available.
Barbara, did you want to mention something?
I was going to say that we had recommended taking that out of his operational budget in April, and at that time said that we would like to see it in the capital plan in October, which is now, and it was 2 cruises that were in his operational budget in April that we asked to have put in the capital plan for October. And when it first came to us, it was 1 cruiser in the capital plan. So we've just made it 2 and staying in line, like Sean said, with the
So consistent
223 or the 322, however you want to.
Which is the replacement. Go ahead.
I just want to clarify, and it's not like a pick-up point part or anything like that, but when we first got the capital plan, you mentioned the one, and that was just so that we know that that was the town manager's recommendation. The police chief had requested 3, we're funding 2 to keep it in line, so that one was not the chief's request, that was the town manager's. So we're
True.
going with the 3-2-2 plan.
Awesome. Anything else? Okay, so I just want to make sure everybody is comfortable with what has happened in the past and what we're doing with this capital plan. We had confirmed, well, we had recommended approval of this plan, which does fund the 2 cruisers this year in the capital plan. And also, there was also discussion about one of the pieces of equipment for Park and Rec. There was and again, we've already recommended approval of this, but a mower with a bagger. And Tom, who unfortunately isn't here tonight, had brought up a question, and it was a valid question, about the cost associated with that, and how do we know what we're procuring is the right piece of equipment at the right price, type of thing. So unfortunately, he's not here, but I wanted to take a second to address that too. Barbara, did you have
I sent an email to Ken, and he didn't have a chance to email me back, so I talked to him real quick before he's leaving today. So I don't have anything in writing, but I'll just relay to you that he had, he researches it to see which is the best. He's looking for an industrial mower, bagger. The one that he chose has they have different styles, I guess you'd say. So some of them, the back is solid. He chose the bag that has more give, so that if it gets backed up and it is bumped, it has more give. So whereas if he had chosen the solid, so he weighs the pros and cons of those types of things, and that is the going price for that type of bagging mower. it's a multi type bagging mower. It's also a Z or Z turn, so that so around the hydrants, around the light posts, and like at the police station, the sign or that type of thing. You can get around that better, and so he researches it, and he finds what is, the going price for.
And I hope we weren't particularly questioning whether he was, researching getting the right thing. It's just that Tom asked a very valid question, because, someone else may think that we could or could not do better, whatever, and we just wanted to make sure that we gave the highway supervisor, who's also Park and Rec, the opportunity to respond to that.
It's definitely not something you can walk into Walmart and get.
Okay. All right, so we had recommended the third column to fund the third column, so we're all good with that. Anyone want to bring up anything else on that? Okay, no, good, all right, thank you, moving along. Article 5 is to raise an appropriate transfer from available funds, $1,800, for the purpose of updating codification of the charter and bylaws of the town. We had recommended approval of this. This is, as you know, if you've been following this for the last couple of meetings, there's been a lot of bylaws and things that are changed and adding, and so it's basically coding and making sure those are all up to speed with regard to the charter and the bylaws, make sure the numbers and all that, and so there's some costs associated with that. We'd recommended approving that. Article 6. Article 6 is to amend a vote taken under Article 15L of the April 2nd, 2012 annual town meeting, which vote authorized the Board of Selectmen to petition the general court for special legislation to amend the charter with respect to availability of warrant prior to town meeting and amend the town's bylaws to be consistent therewith by revising a section of the town bylaws to allow for distribution of notice in an appropriate way, such as a folded piece of paper, rather than a postcard, to provide notice of an upcoming meeting. And then it goes in to say that it's going to be amended to say notice. No later than 1 week prior to the date of town meeting, a notice shall be delivered to the post office for mailing to each residence of one or more registered voters in the town, setting forth, at a minimum, the date, time, and place of the town meeting, as well as language similar to the following, which says that the warrant and the Finance Committee recommendations may be viewed at the town clerk's office, at the website, and you can also contact the town clerk and their phone number to request a paper copy of the warrant. This, again, Article 6 is an article that we recommended, and to boil it all down, there's an explanation in there, but what we're basically doing is moving from mailing a warrant like this to each of the homes, and instead mailing a notice saying that when the meeting is, you know, what time, what date, where it's being located, also where you can go online, or you can call, or where you can come to the town clerk's office to get a copy of the warrant. The idea here being it's more of a green initiative, the costs associated with printing, mailing, the energy costs, and then quite often if you come to town meeting, you'll find you get a new version of it when you show up. So it's just being, it's being cost-wise, it's also being, you know, energy conscious. And so we had approved that too. So unless anybody has any issues with that, we can move along. Article 7 is to see if the town will vote to accept the provisions of general laws, chapter 44, section 53F, for the purpose of establishing ambulance enterprise fund effective in the fiscal year 2013, and further to establish a fiscal year 2013 ambulance enterprise fund budget as follows, and it's in here. There was, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, I think we tabled this in our last meeting because at the last minute, like in the very end of the meeting, the town manager wasn't sure if the numbers in the draft warrant that we were looking at were in fact completely accurate. I did send him an email, I believe on that Thursday, right after our meeting. On Thursday, and I asked him to confirm whether those numbers were in fact correct. I said, just following up on the question from last night, you will recall you were not certain as to the ambulance enterprise figures on the warrant, whether they were correct. I thought there was a question about indirect costs that are listed there. And anyways, I said, has that been sorted out? He wrote back, those figures as printed are correct. He said the 80,000 in the motion total the $665,000 figure. The motion is something that we'll say on town meeting floor. So based upon his note at that time, Article 7, as it is appearing in the warrant,
Could you actually just say the last part again?
which part, the last part of it?
What
He
should
said that the 80,000 in the motion, and this is not this is as it goes on, he says the 80,000 in the motion totaled the $665,000 figure.
Well, this is where I'm a little lost. So
Because it says 70.
Well, 480 plus 65 is 545 plus 70 is 615.
So we're seeing, let's see, I just want to see if, I have a copy of, I think I have a copy of the one with the motions. Oh, I don't know if I do, hold on. The motions, oh, here you go.
It says motion under Article 7, but there's no figure.
There's no figure in it.
I
So,
Suggest we table it again?
I think that's a good idea. So the recommendation will be that we can't provide a recommendation at this time because there's still a question about the numbers. So we haven't changed it because I believe that was still our recommendation, was to table it or to recommend that we couldn't do a recommendation at this time. Thank you, Sean. So I don't know what that email then was talking about. I was just sort of going off the figures are printed as correct, but if the numbers don't match, they don't match. All right, so again, we're going to be meeting before the town meeting anyway, so I'm sure this is what usually happens before the town meeting. Our meeting before that is when they square away all the final funding figures and all that. So we'll have something on the floor that night for Article 7. Moving along. Thank you very much, John, for pointing that out. Article 8 is to see if we'll raise and appropriate or transfer from available funds, including sewer enterprise fund, the sum of $16,375.09 to fund and implement the retroactive costs of the collective bargaining agreement between the town and the American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees, Highway, Sewer, Park, and Rec for the period beginning July 1st, 2010 and ending July 30th, 2012. So this is the retro. And the related increases to base salaries for the current fiscal year, which make any other action relative thereto. An explanation provided by the town manager is a positive vote will appropriate the cost items necessary to fund and implement the collective bargaining agreement between the town and the specified union for the terms indicated. The funds appropriated under this article will cover retroactive pay increases for fiscal year 2012, as well as related increases to base salaries for the current fiscal year. A portion of this appropriation will be paid from the Sewer Enterprise Fund. Article 8, we had recommended approval of Article 8, so unless anybody has any questions about that. So it's to settle that union contract. Okay? All right, moving along, Article 9. Article 9 is to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate or transfer from available funds, including Sewer Enterprise Fund, a sum of money to fund and implement current cost items of the collective bargaining agreement between the town and the American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees, Highway, Sewer, Park and Rec, for the period beginning July 1st, 2012, and ending June 30th, 2015. So it's the next period of their union contract. And the explanation and the warrant, and as I understand it still today, is that at the time of printing, the parties are still in negotiations for a successor agreement. Should the parties agree on a successor agreement, a positive vote will appropriate the cost items necessary to fund and implement the collective bargaining agreement between the town and the specified union for the term indicated. A portion of the funds appropriated under this article will be paid from sewer enterprise fund. In the event no agreement is reached prior to town meeting, this article will be passed over. So what did we recommend on this? That we were going to table it also?
Right.
Provided.
Yeah, we're gonna, I think we were going to defer to the town manager until we have additional information. So nothing changes on that. That was still our recommendation there. As far as I know, nothing's happened on that to this point. Okay, Article 10. Article 10, Article 10, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate or transfer from available funds, including ambulance receipt, reserve account, ambulance enterprise fund, the sum of $156,468.59 to fund and implement the retroactive and current costs associated, current costs of the collective bargaining agreement between the town and International Association of Firefighters, Local 2080, for the period beginning July 1st, 2012 and ending July 1st, 2013, or take any other action relative thereto. The explanation here is a positive vote will appropriate the cost items necessary to fund and implement the collective bargaining agreement between the town and the fire union. For the term indicated, a portion of the funds appropriated under this article will be paid from ambulance-related revenues, i.e. from the ambulance receipt reserve account if Article 7 fails, or from the ambulance enterprise fund if Article 7 is approved. Article 10, we had recommended approval of that. Okay. Moving on, Article 11, to see if the town will raise and appropriate or transfer from available funds the sum of $16,245.60 to fund energy improvements by National Grid at town buildings with the goal of realizing an estimated annual energy savings of $39,734.43, including, and it goes into mention a number of the town buildings, or take any other action relative thereto. This Article 11, the Finance Committee had recommended approval of that as well. Okay, moving on to Article 12, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate or transfer from available funds the sum of $1,000 for hazardous waste day expenses or take any other action relative thereto. The Finance Committee recommends approval of Article 12 as well. Article 13. Article 13 is to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate or transfer from available funds the sum of, and in the warrant you're going to see the sum of $4,540 for the Abington Cultural Council programs and expenses. Such appropriation to supplement an equivalent amount of state funding provided for such purposes or take any other action relative thereto. The reason I want to point out this is, at our last meeting, we had decided to take some of the funds from that article and put it towards the capital plan, where we just discussed how we had decided that we wanted to fund the 2 cruisers. So my understanding of that is that we had recommended approval of this article, amending that amount from $4,540 to $2,270. That is our recommendation. Everybody's good with that? I just noticed it wasn't written in there that way. So our recommendation is still valid because it's still recommending approval of that article with that amendment, said the figures. You guys are good with that?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. All right, moving on. Article 14, to see if the town will vote to authorize the Board of Selectmen to acquire by purchase, gift, or otherwise for general municipal purposes and accept the deed in fee simple to a 4.9 acre parcel, more or less, located off Groveland Street, Abington, known as Lot A, on the plan entitled Estate of Kenneth M. Newcomb, dated September 28, 2011, and prepared by Kelly Engineering Group, recorded in the Registry of Deeds as Book 56, page 1172, which property is currently owned by the estate of Kenneth Newcomb and Harvey Hurwitz, Cape Cod Lumber, or take any other action relative thereto. This is land that will be gifted to the town, no funds requested to acquire those, and this is an article that the that the Finance Committee recommends approval of. No problem, no concerns there, okay. Article 15, okay, we're moving along. Article 15. Article 15 is asking that the town vote to rescind the following borrowing authorizations for the projects in the amount specified. Basically, what's happening here is there was two projects of which funding was approved, that we have approved getting funding, borrowing authorizations. Both of these projects came in under the amount that was authorized for borrowing. So what we're really doing here is we're basically rescinding the authorization to borrow for these projects which are finished in the amounts here. It's $30,906 for the project which was the Chestnut Street water tank construction. Project came under estimate, so we don't need to borrow that $30,000. And then the Woodsdale Green repair, we're seeking to rescind the authorization to borrow $1,034,488 because again, the project came in under what was authorized to borrow, so there's no need to have the authorization to borrow those. So we, as the Finance Committee, recommends approval of that, Article 15 as well.
Question?
Sure.
Is it 31 or 34,000?
Ooh. Oh, did I read? I'm sorry. Thank you.
Just checking.
Thanks for checking. So, good to keep me there. Okay, so it's really $1,031,488.
And just to
Thank you,
clarify
Steph.
that the Woodsdale Green repair project was the windows.
Yes. And thanks for catching. So anyway, so based on the proper numbers that you read in the warrant, we had agreed to recommend approval of that article. Yes. Okay. Okay. Article 16 was where now this is Article 16 is to see if the town will vote to authorize the Board of Selectmen to petition the General Court for legislation providing additional state aid directly to the town of Abington or other state funding, or otherwise reallocating existing state funding for the purpose of maintaining, upgrading, and improving essential components of local, regional, and state-controlled transportation infrastructure located in the town of Abington, or take any other action relative thereto. The Finance Committee voted to recommend approval of this article. The explanation is in there, but basically what it's saying is the Board of Selectmen approved a resolution for these purposes during the summer of 2012 and forwarded the same to the town's state senator and state representative. At this time, the board believes it is imperative that the Commonwealth of Massachusetts provide additional funding for local, regional, and state-controlled transportation infrastructure located within the town of Abington. Approval of this article will authorize the Board of Selectmen to petition the General Court for such purposes in whatever form the Board of Selectmen deems appropriate. And will send a clear message to the town's state representative and state senator that this is a high-level priority in the town. Okay? And then Article 17. Article 17 is to see if the town will vote to amend the town bylaws by adopting a new bylaw establishing certain standards of conduct for town employees and officers as follows, and further to authorize the town clerk to assign said bylaw a proper number consistent with the numbering system in said town bylaws. And you can read it. It's commented here that is ethical standards. And the Finance Committee at our last meeting voted to pass over this article. And we're still good with that? Yeah. Just as a comment to that, because we do have to put our recommendations on there. This is the third or fourth time that that some version of this article has been submitted to town meeting. It's been changed a little bit here and there, I guess, but still, what our recommendation has been in the past, and I would assert it is our recommendation going forward, is our recommendation, of course, is to pass over it, but we wanted to give a little bit of reasoning for that. And here we go. The first part of this article is an attempt to set up a bylaw which requires regular and municipal employees to comply with an already established Massachusetts state ethics law, with which regular and municipal employees are already required to comply. There's no valid reason for the town to have a bylaw which requires employees to comply with an already established state law. That's the first part of this. The Finance Committee also feels that additional rider detailed in this bylaw does not add substance to the statutorily required ethical behavior of regular and municipal employees, both special and regular, volunteer and paid. Additionally, the Finance Committee feels that the inclusion of the additional detailed sort of notice of appearance representing filing That step required by this bylaw is one of record keeping, not that of ethics. It's our understanding from town council that no other town in the Commonwealth has such a rider. Lastly, we feel that this bylaw could potentially keep volunteers from offering their time to the town due to additional seen and unseen pitfalls as set up in here, including potentially fees or fines associated with not complying with bylaw. So anyway, so that's sort of our recommendations there. Anyone have anything to add or bring up? Well, that is really all I kind of had on here. So I just wanted to spend some time to go over that with anyone who happens to be watching and give us an opportunity to review Article 3, which we did. Other than that, I think that's really, that's all we really had on the agenda, other than we can do some minutes, approving some minutes. Anyone wants to, which ones, let's see what we have on there.
Motion to approve the meeting minutes of October 9th and October 10th, 2012.
Here they are. Are we all here? Can we all vote on those? Okay.
I can
second.
vote on one, but not the first one.
Right, okay, so all those in favor of recommending, of approving the, go ahead. Oh, Chad did, I'm sorry. Okay, sorry.
Point of order?
Yes.
Because
Separate
Rick, because Rick can vote on the second, we should probably do
them?
this.
Yeah, okay, so you want to separate those?
Okay, so I'm going to
Withdraw your motion in a second.
Do you want to rescind that
my
motion? Sorry, do you want to rescind the one?
Rescind the motion. Rescind your second.
I rescind my second.
I'd like to motion to approve the meeting minutes of October 9th, 2012.
Second.
That's the one that Rick can't vote on.
Right.
All those in favor? Okay, thank you, guys. Another motion?
Now I'd like to make a motion to approve the meeting minutes of October 10th, 2012.
Second.
Okay, and all those in favor? All right, excellent, thank you guys very much.
Just a point of information, Maureen?
Yes.
I think that Debbie did a good job trying to keep track of trying to go through that. When there was a lot of withdrawals, amendments, and questions, and I think that it was actually very useful in going through it tonight, so I think it reads very well, and it was a good record.
Thank you, Deb. And the minutes are the official record of the meeting, so even though we are taped, the minutes are really, really important, so. Now available on the website? Nice job, Deb.
What's the website address?
www.abington.gov. Thank you very much, right. All right, so you guys, thank you very much for coming for this relatively, go ahead.
Under other business,
Oh, go ahead.
if I may, and
Sure.
I apologize, I have a daughter who's the secretary of the Teen Advisory Board, and it would behoove me to actually discuss that this evening.
Go right ahead. You know what? Do you want to do it? Go right ahead.
Oh, I absolutely don't
I
mind.
would-
I don't mind.
Go right ahead. Explain for those who don't know what we're talking about.
So we received as a group a notice from the Abington Board, Library Trustees, as well as the Library Director, as it relates to the 2012 Federal Waste Book that is promulgated by an Oklahoma senator. And the purpose of the book is to identify the capricious and spurious spending of your taxpayer dollars. And the town of Abington was specifically called out. Page 86, number 52, out of $18 billion in waste and spending, they called out the Abington Public Library for their presentation of a program called Star Wars. Now, if anyone who attends the Abington Public Library, you'll realize that the hours of the library has expanded. It's actually been open more now than it ever has been in its current place of business, as well as the old. Moreover, there is a grant, and I don't actually have the email in front of me, I apologize, but there was a grant that is applied for and received by the federal government for the Abington Public Library for the purpose of developing interest, awareness, and support of the community. With that grant, the public library had created something called the Teen Advisory Board, amongst other things. The Teen Advisory Board is a group of tweens and teens ranging from 12 to 18 whose sole purpose is to develop programs to generate interest in their peer group, as well as to target interest in the rest of the community, to find areas of commonality and to find areas of interest where we can come together as a community. Of note, that Star Wars program, which of course was my daughter's idea that she had put forward, so she said, "Dad, talk about this tonight." The Star Wars program was designed specifically to generate interest of pop culture. And just for the record, as she said, "Dad, it was 40 years ago, I don't care." To that end, it was designed to create and generate interest to try to hit a multi-generational group of individuals, bring them into the library on a weekend day, and to see if they could actually get more folks to participate in the library programs, either learn from the interactions, have some fun, take out some books, etc. So to that end, Deb Grimmett had submitted some stats that suggest that 102 attendees participated in this program, which I think is a hallmark of success. Typically, the library programs have younger kids, preschoolers, elementary school, and some teenage or middle school folks that participate in the programs and hover around 30. To have 102 is testimony to the interest the community had in the program. Moreover, as Deb further indicated, that the purpose of the program was to generate interest. My description to other folks in the community is like saying the following: I'm mad at the school for wasting my taxpayer money because they have Dr. Seuss in first grade. I'm mad at the school for wasting my money because they're developing people's brains with music programs. The purpose of building awareness and generating civic responsibility for this group of individuals, whether it's teenagers or whether it's people who are interested in what the library can do, is to appeal to all facets and all assets. We have computers in the library. People use them for social media. People use them for research. People use them for email. They use them. It's a place for them to go and use. Nonetheless, the interesting stats: 102 participants, 10% of the new cards issued in the month of September came from that particular program. So to that end, $365 worth of waste, I'll donate that, but I'd like to actually think to ourselves, send a letter to the editor and say, really, how much did it cost you in taxpayer money to generate this particular report to call out the town of Abington for doing what it was charged to do? Further, the last piece, just to identify how on top of things the library is. That program was in September of 2012. This report was published in October, I think it was October 6th of 2012. Deb Grimmett had all of her grant funding, all of her documentation submitted to the appropriate agency, detailed specifically what had happened. So the fact is that she submitted it early, had it done, and somehow we are called into question. So I think, honestly, if anything else, it's bunk, absolute horse hockey, and it's frustrating. So, Madison.
I think that was very appropriate to bring that up, and did a very nice job. Madison, thank you very much for getting that on the docket for tonight, and also for spearheading that program. And also thanks to Deb Grimmett, too, because she, as soon as that came out, she sent a note to us because she wanted to make sure that everybody was fully aware of what was being said about it.
Very frustrating, too, I think, the library. We always say they can absolutely pinch a penny. And to get called out in a report like that for a program that was $365 in grant money is, I'm sure it must have been very frustrating for them.
Yeah, well, very ridiculous to be pulled out, to be called out on something like that, which was clearly a successful successful. And I actually did pull up, Sean, the name of the grant. And the grant, hold on, I had it right here. So their tab, that's the organization that you talked about, the grant. 2-year federal grant called Serving Tweens and Teens from the Institute of the Museum and Library Sciences.
There it is.
So it was specifically servicing tweens and teens. So what else do you think you're going to have programs?
Much prefer it be Star Wars.
Well, the Teen Advisory Board, you have to understand, well, I mean, I appreciate truly, these are folks these are kids who donate and dedicate their own time.
Yeah.
There's no one who's on the group who's forced. They have officers of the committee, they duly elected and voted, and they have responsibilities much like we have responsibilities. And they take ideas and say, okay, what's going to get the biggest draw? They've run cooking programs, they've run improvisation programs, they've run things that are focused on developing the mind. So when you think about arts and performing arts, you think about reading, and I think my child has read every book that's possible in the library as a bibliophile, and that's only because she has an interest to be there and help others. So that $365 is actually in line with what the grant parameters were. Generate interest, get new participants into the library, new generations. So my daughter, much like many of her other colleagues that are on that group, have been at the library with her since she was 3 years old. So she's building a legacy, and I think it's shameful that anyone in town politics, the state and federal government would actually call out this group to say, wow, you're doing a great job, instead of saying that you wasted money.
Well put. Well said.
Very well stated.
Okay. Well, thank you. So now, having concluded our business, I believe, anything else to bring up?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor? All right, thank you. Don't forget, show up at the town meeting. We'll need a quorum, the 29th.